So, once you have your world or the place you visualize, when it comes to my process of writing, what I tend to use is use technology to its fullest, because that's what it's there for, to make it easier. So you want a Bluetooth device, one that lets you hands free and be able to, you know, say like get behind the wheel. Because one thing I do in long commutes is I want to write, but at the same time I'm driving right now, so I can't open up my laptop or anything. So what I do is I just use the Bluetooth device. I have my phone go on Microsoft Word, and I just get to it. I start talking as if I'm writing the book. I start talking in that tone of voice. And then while I do that, it's recording everything. It's writing everything down. Now, maybe it's not doing it perfectly, but it's at least doing it enough so that I remember where I left off or what I want to do with this section with this part of the chapter or the chapter itself, um, while letting me focus on my driving. And what the thing about Microsoft is that it'll upload it automatically to your OneDrive account, which you could just once you reach your destination or once you have your time, you could just get on there, look up on online or look on your account or get on your computer and just fix what the mistakes that the phone didn't catch or fix what the mistake the phone caused, and start editing it. Then what you want to do is you want to add more stuff to it. Then you want to edit it yourself. You want someone to edit, a peer edit, and reviewed. Have them write comments, talk about what you could do better, what was missing, a lot of other stuff, followed by re-edit yourself and then do the peer thing again. The reason you do the peer thing twice is because you want to make sure that the problem that was addressed in the first part was fixed. You don't want that problem to linger on. Um, that's why it's always good to have more than one person, helping you out with this. At least two. Two is a sweet spot. Three's okay. Um, and usually do this part. It's like this is usually like the. It sounds easy, and it's like, oh well, that's short, but you'll be amazed. It's like how a lot of time people forget. Like sometimes I forget. It's like, oh yeah, I have Bluetooth. You know, I could just talk and all that. Um, like I remember I had a long commute to Susanville, which is like almost 5 hour drive. It was very helpful that I was able to do that. I got a few pages done. Of course, I had to re-edit them. I had to edit them, but it at least got me a starting point, and that's what a lot of writers always need, a starting point. And that's because sometimes it's easier to talk about things than write about things, but then when you write it down you're like, oh man, it doesn't look as way as I thought it would. Well, it's like, well, now you get to fix it, and then there you go, now it's on papers. And you could apply the same way to essays. I do the same thing to essays. I do the same thing to cover letters, among other stuff, because it's just a useful tool and you want to take advantage of it. It's like that's what technology is for us to use it to its fullest. Nobody uses technology to its minimalist. It's like, no, you gotta use it to its fullest. It's right there for you. Um, so I know this was very short. So the next thing I want to talk about, um, added to it, was more on study tips, because a lot of people ask me on, or actually not even maybe a lot of people, but there's this one study trick I do that really is helpful for people, especially if you're studying. Um, I tend to use, it's like I never use this method until usually finals, which is the reason why I mostly have the grades I don't like in a way, but now I'm getting the grades I like. Um, Also, I discovered this most towards the end of my second year of college. One thing I tend to use is that of music, because see, the brain cannot. It's like people try to increase your brain's clock speed. To increase your brain's clock speed, you people tend to think, oh, drink coffee or take something, or something, right? that doesn't increase your brain's clock speed. That just jolts it for a short amount of time. Things like sugar or coffee, that only jolts it. That doesn't increase your brain's clock speed. What increases your brain's clock speed is music. I tend to use music to increase my brain's clock speed because once I listen to one song for so long, my brain starts mimicking its clock speed. You know, when you get a song stuck in your head, that's your brain mimicking the clock speed of that music. So what you do, also known as tempo. So what I usually do is whenever I'm studying for a certain class, I try to keep that one, that clock speed going, because every time, um, every time it's like I do a step in my equations, that's like one, that's like one clock speed. That's like one clock pulse. There we go, one clock pulse. And so eventually your brain will start is like listening to that frequency in its head, is like start recalling that frequency. And so then you have that clock speed, and it helps you process data in your brain much faster. So it's a way of manipulating the brain's clock speed, but it really helps out a lot. I've done it. I've been able to turn the tides around when it came to grades. Like what I remember when the professor told me I needed an A to pass the class. That was in my second year. I did that trick. It worked well. I managed to, I managed to still make it to my fourth year. Um, and so it's like, but the thing is, the negative downside to this, it does take a lot out of you because you are using a lot of your brain's clock speed. So it's a trade-off. It's not a something that's like, oh, I just do this all the time. It's like, and you forget you have four classes or more. You have four opponents. So you gotta be wise when you gotta be like strategic a little bit. I'm still experimenting it for myself. I haven't perfected it at all. I wouldn't say I perfected it. I'm just still beginning to learn it. But yeah, it's a great way. I know a friend of mine was telling me that he used it for sports. He used it when he did sports a lot. He did that method because it does help the brain recall stuff a lot faster. Um, and that's why I try to recommend to students that are younger than me or new to school. Is like honestly, it's the best thing. The worst thing to do is to listen to several music for one class or for studying because then your brain is more focused on the songs than it is about the thing, but than it is about the actual materials. Plus, your brain's trying to mimic a clock speed, but there's several clock speeds going on at the same time, so it just shuts down, and then that's what develops of like you just get distracted easily. Um, so that's what I recommend with the whole issue of clock speed, and also like it helps your brain study. People tend to think, oh, I study listening to Beethoven or Mozart. It doesn't matter. Clock speed's the one that matter. I usually like listening to heavy metal because heavy metal has a pretty fast clock speed. But at the same time, if my brain can't keep up, it's just useless. So I got to pick the right clock speed. Something that my brain can easily memorize all the time. So then when I'm studying, it's just memorizing all the way. I find it to be very efficient. I recommend it. So yeah, as you can see, I have these two podcasts. I'm doing like two separate things because I know the first section wasn't gonna be a lot. This one was a lot more. Um, yeah, it's like I'll have a next week's podcast. I'll put some stuff out on Twitter. You can always follow me there at Angel Figueroa 91 at Twitter. There's some cool stuff coming by. And it's like always tune in. Uh, Anything you guys want to know about or anything, just message me on Twitter, or you could message me on the email account thing. I'm a bobber. As soon as I figure, actually, no, you can just email me. Um, uh, as opposed to my novel, it is coming up well. Um, However, it's like despite school getting in the way, but that's life, and you gotta live with it. Uh, Uh, for next week's podcast, it's still undetermined. There are some it's like I there are also some stuff I will try to figure out on talking about. But overall, thanks guys for joining.